first, let's talk to Ryan Shorthouse, founder and executive chair of Bright Blue, which is the independent think tank for liberal conservatism. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I mean,
good evening.
This is refried beans, isn't it? I mean, hasn't National Service, its return in some form, been kicking around the think tanks for yonks?
It has. And, there is obviously the National Citizen Service that we have, which David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, pioneered. That's for 15 to 17-year-olds. And about 60% of 15 to 17-year-olds are doing something through National Citizen Service. And it's kind of like a month-long programme. You do volunteering, you work in the community. So there is this sort of thing that exists at the moment. Obviously, what the Prime Minister has talked about is having it at 18 and making it compulsory. So that's the difference that he's advocating.
But none of the military chiefs, and nor indeed the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Defence, Andrew Morrison, last week, seem to think it's a good plan and seem to think there's money for it or the organisational structures in place to enact anything like what James Cleverly has been outlining today.
Yeah, I mean, I think about 5% of 18-year-olds are forecast to go into the reservist stuff, the armed forces stuff. And, a lot of the armed forces say that's quite difficult for us to train up, to focus on these 18-year-olds. We could be spending more time elsewhere. But the other 95% are due to do this volunteering, not so much volunteering if it's compulsion, but once a month, every weekend, doing some kind of voluntary work. My view is that it's just unrealistic. Lots of 18-year-olds they're adults at this point. They're either studying or working. And, if they're studying, they might need to actually earn some money at the weekends, particularly if you're from a low-income background. So if you're forced to do voluntary work, I think that's not great. And also, they're now out of school. So it's harder to enforce this and to also give them the support of the types of voluntary work that they should be doing. And also, loads of charities who have got to take these 18-year-olds on have got to train them up. They've got to make sure that there is work available to them. So a lot of this operational stuff is quite difficult and it doesn't seem to have been thought through.
Especially at a time when the army is at its smallest operational size since the Napoleonic Wars. One wonders why they can't put £2.5 billion into building up the army and our defence forces, rather than forcing 18-year-olds to do something they may not naturally want to do, or may have gap years planned, or maybe working, to try and save up money to try and get on the property ladder. I mean, does anybody think it's a good idea? I mean, I know this comes apparently from Will Tanner, who ran Onward, and he now works in Downing Street. So he's recycled something from an Onward policy document. But has anybody said, yes, we can do this, this is a great idea? I mean, if we were a serious country with a lot of resources, I would say, yes, this is a good idea. But as we are no longer a very serious country and we don't have very many resources, I just don't see this flying. I just see this dying as the election campaign wears on, and then quietly dropping it until the military top brass actually endorse it in some way.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily that eccentric, because there are some North European countries, Israel, that has some form of national service
for very good reasons. That they are in a very rough neighbourhood.
Yes, although obviously the world is a lot more dangerous now, even for the UK. But having said that, only a few people are actually selected to do it. Whereas obviously what the Prime Minister is now advocating is that if you don't do the military bit, you also have to do the volunteering bit. So that is quite exceptional. Now, my view is, look, I think there's lots of personal and social benefits for young people being involved in community work. And the social benefit is getting people from different backgrounds,
totally,
different generations, a mix. I just think at 18, it's unnecessarily expensive, as you said. It's late and it's too lengthy. It would be better to do this type of thing when children are in year 9 or 10, perhaps in the summer term for a week. Do you remember work experience in year 10? You did a kind of, you joined a company, you did that sort of work experience. I think something like this, volunteering, community work, when you are 13 or 14 and you have the school making sure that people are doing it and giving them the support of the type of places they can do it, would be much better than waiting until 18.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing what other people think. But thank you very much for now, Ryan Shorthouse, founder and executive chair of Bright Blue.